Okay, so I'll just mention it's been a pleasure to be talking with you already before this recording of the video, and to hear your own backgrounds and your own interests in this. This is absolutely vital that the youth see that other people outside of Pakistan and India and the subcontinent are really interested in your traditional musics. It they, we people who encounter it and they hear of Ustad Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, and that's only the beginning of
Absolutely.
the richness of Pakistani culture. And what's beautiful about Pakistani culture is that it developed in a different way due to various reasons. I mean, the music, saying, because of that, but it kept certain traditions that got lost in India, like the tradition of Nazarana is so strong.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it was there before, but it got lost in India in many respects. I mean, I think there's a little bit going on there, but traditions like that and other
Yeah.
kinds of concepts, even the whole vocabulary in which you describe things is different than that, or where you decide to start your history from. Do you start it from the Sanskrit texts? We don't really know what that music sounded like back then. We have some similar terminology from Sanskrit, but there was so much Perso-Arabic that came in,
Yeah.
that's been there for over 1,000 years. You know what I mean? At what point can you have to say that this is subcontinental? It is its own thing. It's different than Iranian or Arabic, and you know all this. You know what I mean? But this needs to be discussed, and so we're increasingly, musicologists are looking at more and more Persian texts on music, treatises, Persian musicological treatises that are written way back. And we see so much now of how this music really unfolded. It's not exactly the nationalist version that we get from India. And that's
True.
really important, that the Pakistani perspective needs to be taken into consideration. And so, but aside from that, the only way I got interested in the nation of Pakistan was the fact that I was born there to missionary parents,
I see.
Christian missionaries, who were there to help assist the Pakistani Christians in economic development, to uplift them and to work with them. And when that job was done, there was no other, we weren't going around, my parents weren't going around trying to convert people. I mean, I was mentioning this before, you don't convert Muslims, basically. It never happens, almost never, and so that wasn't the point. The point was to assist and for them themselves to learn about another culture, right? And they
Absolutely.
can bring that back with understanding. That's the way we move forwards to peace, is to understand each other, not to fight with each other. And so uh, I wanted to go back to Pakistan, but not with the church. I wanted to go back with music. And so in Seattle, Washington, at the university there, where I was
Yeah.
studying musicology, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan Sahib, Ustad Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, came for a number of months with his entire troupe, and he taught us. So I actually learned Qawwali from Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan,
Wow.
which is amazing in US. In US,
That's
it
impressive.
was. I know it was so incredible. And he mentioned, I said, I want to go back to study tabla in Pakistan. Lahore.
Okay.
He said mainly just two tabla players, but there's so many traditions of tabla in Pakistan.
Absolutely.
This not just one silsila or whatever, numerous, but he said there's Ustad Tafo Khan,
Sure.
Ustad Ustad Mian Shaukat Hussain Khan, and so I ended
Absolutely.
up studying with Ustad Mian Shaukat Hussain Khan
Oh,
Sahib, which
wow.
was a great honor, and a lot from his shagirds, his students, because that when you study with a great ustad like that, you also study with
Of course.
their students. It's an integral part. So I learned so much from them, but through the ustad. That's the most important thing.
How was he
And
like?
uh,
Like your
a
first-hand
most
experience?
dignified individual, absolutely full of dignity and honor. I've rarely encountered someone like this anywhere in my life. He was very careful about how he spoke about others.
Okay.
how he spoke about art.
Oh,
And, you know, he was not a loudmouth or challenge Karuna, you know, all this stuff, you know.
so how did you feel? Like, you were born in Pakistan, but still, you were raised in the US. I don't know your Urdu speaking or Punjabi speaking capabilities, but like, how did you feel any divide, or like, how did he welcome you in?
Well, मेरी उर्दू बहुत ख़राब है, मैं प्रैक्टिस नहीं कर सकता हूँ। यूनाइटेड
अच्छा,
स्टेट्स में तो ये बड़ा मसला है, लेकिन फिर भी मैं कभी-कभी उर्दू बात करता हूँ, you know, from some person or another,
sure.
you know, just a little bit here and there,
Yeah,
but I've lost a lot of my Urdu. And really, I was trying to study Punjabi, which was the main language, of course, you
true.
know, in
That is
Lahore.
true.
But I had a hard time communicating with him initially, at least, you know, and because I mean, some of his Urdu was flavored with Punjabi, you know,
Of
the
course.
Of
accent.
course. We
And
run
I mean,
across that quite often in our own musicians.
right, yeah, you know, but rightly so. I mean, after all, this is, you know, Punjab, you know,
Yeah,
so
Haan.
and it's such uh, a, a melodious language, Punjabi, you know, I mean, it's beautiful.
true.
And the Galis are horrible. They're fierce. They don't lose power when you translate them into English. They're still powerful.
You
So
are truly
I mean,
acquainted with Punjabi then. Oh, yes,
right,
you have great
yeah,
capabilities in Punjabi.
it's tremendous. Like if you say them, you could die. You know what I mean, from someone else. No, but aside from that,
Yeah,
uh, you know, absolutely very generous, and I just felt like sometimes I didn't know what it was, what it meant, what it meant to be a shagird. Even understanding that role, I didn't quite understand until, you know, years after I had left. I
I see.
finally understood what it really meant, you know, and I regret that. I didn't have the cultural knowledge of that, but the teachings uh, of that and what it meant to be a student came later. I regret to say, but I still have some contact with, you know, his son, Ustad Shaukat, you know, Raza Shaukat, and
Yeah,
um, and it's great. And I still have contact with NCA. I do the yearly theses that they write, and in it, it's just fantastic.
I see.
I love that connection. So
So when were you Ustad Shaukat Hussein's Shagird? So what time
o-
frame?
only formally for 2 years, from
Okay,
94 through 96. And he passed away, you know, during that time period, and it was so sad.
true.
And uh, and again, I didn't know how to be a shagird during that time when he got very ill.
I
And that
see.
was my own, you know, my own inabilities about that. But it was amazing to see all the people who came forth, especially at you know, the mourning of his loss. So many top level musicians came from all around the world and
True.
to give their condolences. He was such a profound individual, you know, and musician of the highest caliber. And my only regret is that we don't have a lot of really high quality solo recordings of him. High quality meaning the recording quality
Absolutely.
to capture the sound of his tabla. The actual sound of his tabla was brilliant in terms of the sound production, the and things he could do with that were amazing. And so, I mean, we have one or two recordings. There's one from Radio Pakistan, Lahore, that is a special mehfil with other tabla players, almost certainly, and that's an amazing recording. Yes. So, but yes, only for about a couple of years. But then my learning continued in 1999 when I visited, and then later on in 2004. And I learned a lot from uh, like 2, 3 students of his. And so, and I also continued working on my own and just trying to master the information that I got. I didn't necessarily get a whole lot in the sense of, 100 kaidas, 1,000 guts or whatever. I can't claim to have that massive knowledge, but of the
Sure.
stuff I learned from him, I practiced it and practiced it. And so I actually have my own solo on the internet, SoundCloud,
I see.
Bansal Kisawari, at the
Hmm.
15 beat matra
Yeah.
one. I've done that, and I have a Tindal, and I have a Chautal, a Pakawaj oriented solo too,
Yeah.
that I did, and adapting in quite a number of his pieces for that. And I have other compositions too from other places, but and I did go around because I was interested in seeing as much of the scene as possible, meaning the tabla scene of different tabla players. I went and interviewed quite a number of other people, and he was okay with that. He understood that my work was meant to, interview other people. But in terms of becoming a tabla player, what I wanted to play, I followed his teachings, as well as a teacher I had before him. I did study tabla before him and from another ustad. So it was kind of a mix, but I would say most of my tabla comes from Ustad Shaukhur Singh Khan Sahib and his students
I see.
who taught me. So,
I see. Yeah. So how did you shift to NCA? So where's the shift to NCA coming in?
well, NCA approached me because they knew about my work in 1994 through 96, and I met a number of people, and how I studied this thing called ethnomusicology. But I don't like that anymore. There's just musicology,
True.
right? I mean, what's ethnic? Ethnic is only for the person who says, like here I am, some white American, and I eat Pakistani food. Am I eating ethnic food? To me, it's no longer ethnic because it's such a part of who I am,
True.
right? It all depends on who's doing the definition.
In such a globalized world, the term is kind of meaningless. Yeah.
It is. It still continues. You look at the Grammys,
True.
best world music album.
Absolutely.
It's dumb. World music is so stupid.
It takes time to change terms. It takes time.
Yeah, it takes
Absolutely
time.
works.
In like when you're playing the sitar, are you playing world music? I mean, this sitar is everywhere, but the symphony,
Yeah.
classical Western is everywhere. Why isn't that world music?
So true.
Because it is metal. World music. You have a metal scene in Pakistan, from what I understand, right? There's metal, hard rock. That's global. So, but aside from that, with NCA, I was then approached, and it was a combination. I worked at NCA and also worked at the lawyer Raza Kazim, his institute, Sanjan Nagar Institute of Philosophy and Arts.
Absolutely.
You've heard of that, yeah? And
So
I
you
don't know what
were music. You were teaching music there. What were you doing there exactly?
not teaching music. I was supposed to be doing musicological research and teaching
I
at
see.
NCA.
I
So
see.
the two were very much associated with each other at the time, NCA and SIPA. And so we had a lot of people from SIPA also at NCA.
I see.
And I helped develop a little bit more some of the research in library at NCA, and guided students in research and how to do musicology or musicological research. And the person who really, really, really helped out a whole lot in building the program was the journalist Sarwat Ali Saab. Sarwat Ali,
I
he
see.
has written quite a bit for the Dawn and other music critic. Excellent writer, perfect. His English is better than mine. No, I'm serious. I met quite a number of Pakistanis where they're correcting me in my English. It's humbling. It's humbling. You know what I mean? Because, here's this language forced on the rest of the planet, English, right? And then they do even better than me. And so that's where you begin to realize, like, oh, the world does not revolve around the U.S., that's for sure. And so I he was amazing. Sawrat Ali Saab. He had all the students do different research about the about Pakistani music. It could be
Okay.
folk, it could be light genres, it could be classical. A lot of it initially was classical. Now it's gotten into so many different things. Pakistani rap, Pakistani, that Coke Studio thing.
Are you mentioning the recent theses you're looking at?
Yeah, electronic EDM.
Oh, wow.
EDM, all this
Yeah.
stuff. It's all over, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. And so many other topics. And some of these are very sophisticated. And to be honest, some of them are better written than some of the papers I read at where I work at my local university. Better. It's a higher standard. And so I'm deeply impressed the way it's been developed and the amount of research that has occurred with Sawat Ali now under the current NCA head, and who's
I see.
fantastic. He went to US to study ethnomusicology, and he has a PhD, and he's just fantastic. So
That's wonderful to hear.
yes.
So, when did you meet Aliyu? So, what happened? When was it? Any experience you'd like to share?
Well, and in 2004, I do believe it was 2004, 2005, when I first went to NCA, he was
Yeah.
there, and he was just a very gregarious, meaning very open, and you know these
Absolutely.
terms, and had that sparkle in his eye and like sort of brilliant streak. He was just able to perceive so many things, and he had already all this interest in rock music, guitar, and I
Absolutely.
find that fascinating because I was learning like, wow, you're interested in all this music from US, but then what they realized was, oh my goodness, the American media is so strong in coming over from US to here in terms of cultural, Hollywood films and all that stuff. And then what Pakistani youth hopefully will realize is that, look, your traditions are so amazing, you know what I mean? And we're only being told that, they're not, whatever, and we think this is so much better. And I'm not saying it's better than any other kind of music necessarily, but it stands on its own as something amazing. And I do, speaking of the Coke Studio stuff, I like it a lot because it shows an incredible fusion that's natural. It's not like forced. It's not
Sure.
someone playing a Bach partita or a Bach violin thing, and then someone's playing the tabla, and you try to put two together. It doesn't work. What they have developed in the studio is this incredible blend, which sounds good. It just sounds really good. It's corporate, of course. I'm not so into
course.
that. But where else are you going to get the money? You
True.
know what I mean? Where's the money going to come from? And so, I remember that first time. What's that group with the Patiala singer? I'm not awake right now. It was called Fusion, FUZON, or
Oh yeah,
Fusion.
absolutely. The Ustad Amanat Ali Khan's descendants. I've forgotten the name.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking out right now, but that one song he's singing in Rag Yemen, but the way they did it was amazing. Rag Emin, as they say here, Emin.
True.
And it was, and then so many other fusions since then have been incredible. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying this is going to replace the classical tradition. I think the classical tradition should continue. Absolutely. There's nothing more wonderful than sitting in a small gathering, a mehfil, and the tabla player is right there. You have tanpura, and then you have the khayal singer or the sitar, and it's just right there, and the music is just coming right to you. It's so full. It is so complete of tal, and rag, tal, and all this stuff. and the sound itself, the sound is full. It's as complete as an orchestra for me. You can have
Absolutely.
50 violins up there, is the equivalent to one sitar.
The
One
live
sitar.
experience is so intimate.
Yeah, and the richness, and that it's important that it be up close. I mean, you can use microphone in a big auditorium, get the microphone right, then you can get it right. But when it's right there, you hear the brilliance of that sound. And you probably know from just playing the instrument yourself, it's the sound is there with you, and so it was designed that way. It was like, what a synthesizer is?
Yeah.
Synth, you have the keyboards there and it's synthesized sounds electronically. Well, I look at the sitar and the way with all its tarab is strings that are underneath the main playing strings as a type of synthesizer. It is an early technology to try and create a very reverberant, rich sounding instrument. That was their design, and a lot of it comes from sitar, is, as you know, a Persian word, setar, and tar is string, a guitar, sitar, right? And so they put all those different strings in there, and then the gourd, and then the way in the jawari of that bridge for the sitar. The way they design that, is it open or is it closed? That kind of thing. How much resonance are we going to get? That thing. It's all science. It's built over 1,000 years.
Yeah, ingenious
Easily.
technology for the time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So
Yeah. So coming back to Ali Ayub and his thesis and all, he was mentioning that you suggested this project, or like he wrote a term paper for you, and that kind of like ran into this thesis. He didn't like clarify it much, so perhaps you have your side of the story.
well, I can't quite remember because it's been so long ago, but
Absolutely.
almost certainly, something like that could have happened, because I, at the time, was visiting a sitar maker,
Okay.
and in I can't remember what area it was, and I don't know if his sons are still
Karachi,
making sitar
Karachi or Lahore?
in Lahore.
Okay, in Lahore.
Ah, Mansa Wala Bazaar.
No, I might have been a different one.
Okay.
He's related to the great sitar maker in Delhi who taught
Ricky Ram.
Ricky Ram.
Yeah, I
Ah,
think he's a sitar maker. We interviewed him, in fact. His name is Ziauddin. He's like 75 or so right now. I'm not sure. Like sitar maker there in Bansawala Bazaar. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, that might be it. I think so. I'll have to remember again. It's the
Because
sitar maker for Ashraf Sharif Khan. Ustad Ashraf
absolutely,
yes,
Sharif.
yes.
yes. And his ancestors, in fact, taught Ricky Ram.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
isn't that fascinating? But but because there wasn't like really a lot of current or what you call contemporary musicological research done in so many traditions in Pakistan, there was a giant world for NCA students to go and just look at every kind of thing, and it's still very rich. There's so much more that can be done, but the fact that there wasn't something done on Pakistani sitar was astounding. And so a person like Ali Ayub could just go to town with it, because he had so many ways to be able to approach so many resources in terms of his own curiosity, his ability with words, his musical sense, and so forth, and just the sheer drive and passion to see this project through.
yeah.
And one thing I will mention is that before Ustad Valai Khan and before Pandit Ravi Shankar, there were many prominent traditions. I mean, there still are in many respects, but people only know two: the Tantrakari Ang, Gayaki Ang.
हाँ जी.
It came down to these two sitar players, and then everyone else started to follow. Your Valai Khan or, Ravi Shankar, Valai Khan, Ravi Shankar. I really like the Valai Khan, of course. Sorry, Guy Young. It's fantastic. It's so good. Like, and the sound of the sitar is fantastic. But what you find though is that, like, even in India, there are many other traditions than this that sort of go between the two. They're not entirely instrumental oriented or,
True.
gaiki.
It's a range.
But right, but and so you can almost see that with Ashraf Sharif Khan, and even though he's still Gaiki Young, basically, but you look at his father, Ustad Muhammad Punchwala, he had a much more open sounding sitar. The sitar
True.
wasn't so closed. And so that speaks to another kind of tradition, even though he had studied from that lineage of Anaya Khan, Vilayat Khan's lineage, further back. He still had his own style too. You could hear that he was influenced by Ravi Shankar, and of course Laikari, which is very strong in the Pandit Ravi Shankar style. But then we've had Ustad Shahid Pervez, brilliant, develop a lot of that Laikari in the Gaiki Young style. But what Ali Ayub was able to do is just document all these different styles that are there, that don't necessarily fall in these just one or the other. It's called a binary opposition. It's either this or it's that. There's nothing in between, shades of gray, and or other kinds of things that are maybe even totally different from these two things.
True.
And so, and that's really important, to be able to give visibility to these traditions, these sitar players, and to ones that just people want to slap on. So excellent work.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the uniqueness is also adds to the importance of his work. So do you think that there's been any work in Pakistan which kind of um, like is parallel to what he's done? Is there something that has expanded on it, or is it just like um, the pretty much the only work in its field?
Well, to the best of my recollection, I think that's the only one really that looks at the sitar. Although there might have been one that was based on a specific tradition, but I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't know of one specifically on Ashraf Sharif Khan's lineage. There should be one on that, just on Muhammad Punchwala.